Hello, everybody. Welcome. My name is Doug Cook. I'm a NOFA Mass board member, and it's my great pleasure to be your host today. I'm happy that you're all here joining us at Preparing, Preserving, and Eating from the Land with Julie Rawson. Before we get started, I'd just like to run through a couple of slides. We here at NOFA Mass take racial equity in the food system very seriously, as you have heard throughout the day today. So again, just want to reiterate, we appreciate your hard work and in working on this with us together. We encourage you to center racial equity in your own work. And so we've created some lists of participating organizations, but we encourage you to reach out to those folks in your own community as well. We, of course, couldn't do this without our sponsors, which I'm sure you've seen them around, and our vendors as well. We hope you support them and mention how much you enjoy their support of NOFA Mass. As well, we have an auction coming up. So if you have any interest in those auction items, there's a QR code hanging up on the wall, different places. You can take a shot of that with your phone and get to see all the different things that our sponsors and vendors have donated to us to support NOFA Mass. And then at the end, we hope that you would be so gracious as to take a survey and tell us how we did. Your feedback, of course, helps us make better and more comprehensive programs for you in the future. And with that, it is my great pleasure to introduce Julie Rawson. Julie has 70 years of experience as an organic grower. Your entire life, let's say.
53 girls.
Julie works and lives on Many Hands Organic Farm in Barre, Mass. with her husband, Jack Kittredge. And they have staff and volunteers who grow extremely nutrient-dense food. And Julie, for 34 years, was the executive director of NOFA Mass and has recently retired. So we thank you for doing all the great work and welcome back.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Julie.
So the first thing I want to do is,
Sure.
my idea was that we would, if we have any couples here and they want to share one of their handouts with this nice bag, great. I wanted to demonstrate how we can make a meal in January from all of our own food. I think a lot of times people are everywhere on the spectrum, you know. Some people buy all their stuff, some people are garden in season and make a few things, and some people preserve a lot of food, you know, any level of food, or they just can, or they just freeze, or they just use whatever, one dry or whatever. And so I'm just trying to lay out all the possibilities. And we don't do everything in our farm, but we do a lot of different kinds of things, and we just kind of spark your interest to not only raise as much food as you can for as long as possible in the year, but then be able to preserve it so that you can eat it later. And if you're a CSA member too, I think a lot of times our CSA members on our farm don't know what to do if they get too much stuff in their bag. They either give it away or they throw it away or whatever. And it's my fond hope that people will learn how to use everything that comes their way. And so, for example, if you have extra herbs in the summertime and you can't really deal with any more parsley, well, then let's just chop it up and throw it in the freezer. Or, you know, basil, you can just make a little ice cube of it, grind it up with some oil and make it an ice cube and freeze that for use later. Or you know, if you got too many bunches of kale over the last month and you want to just take one of those bunches and learn how to steam it and blanch it and then put it in the freezer. So start thinking about something that used to be quite second nature, at least for people in the northern hemisphere, northern parts of the northern hemisphere, up in, you know, this part of the world, across the top where we do have winter.
Hi, how are you?
I think we, you know, it was second nature to preserve all of your food because there wasn't necessarily other food available, except for maybe some rice, I mean, not rice, but, salt and flour and cornmeal and things like that available to people off season. So we've moved from this place of, food preservation is a centralizing force in the life of the farm family. And this country again was heavily farmers, and slowly over generations, we're now, what, 1% or something of the population. But I think, one of my missions in life is to have everybody be able to feel that they can preserve their own food and then also learn how to cook it too.
Okay, Sarah Julie.
Is there another place we can squeeze a chair in? How about right here?
We should share.
So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna cut up a bunch of vegetables, and I left my pork stock in the refrigerator. I was sad to see, but I do have some turkey stock and some summer squash stock that we're gonna cook all this in. And we're gonna let it cook while we're talking. And then if anybody can still eat, I had a big lunch, I'm about you, but then I can still eat by the end of the workshop. We'll have a bowl of soup and a nice salad. And there's also some applesauce over here that frozen applesauce we can have for dessert. So just trying to, give you all a hands-on look at how you can really make a nice meal any time of the year. So anybody know what this is? Purple top turnip here. You see, this whoever cuts this needs to take a little bit of the crap off. Okay. And this. Here's an onion, a right onion, here's a red onion too. So these are going to go in. And then you have some potatoes over here. You don't know what these are. Anybody know what these are? Celeriac. Celeriac, yeah. They're one of the world's ugliest vegetables, actually. They have these long roots on them. But we had to come off because there's so much dirt in it. So I tried to get as soon as possible. And you all know what these are, probably. And then we have some of this. Okay, those are the dry ingredients that are going to go in the soup. And then over here, I brought some frozen things. I have some collards at the bottom of the bag and some green beans and some corn and some parsley. So we'll throw all that in with, I have a turkey stock and a summer squash that we pureed in that the stock. So it's not going to have perhaps enough water in it, but we'll figure it out.
Did you freeze it in that manner so that you could make the soup? Like
No.
the original?
No, I just went a bunch of, I went to ingredients going in. What's candy? And I threw a bunch of them.
Got it. Like,
I was planning this workshop long ago. No. And so over here for the salad, I'm very proud of the fact that this is the end now, it's still dripping water, the end of our hoop house lettuce. So we just harvested this about a week, actually this is about a week old. And so we started some new stuff that will probably be up in time to have fresh lettuce. And then a feeds, this is a Lux green leaf. This is a smaller one, so we have the monsters from two, but we're gonna grate those two and these carrots. And then we're gonna put in these sprouts, which we grow sprouts almost a year on our so I need some volunteers. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 knives over here. And over here I have a knife and a grater. So 2 people could make salad. And 6 people could make soup. Who wants to sign up? Right, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is that it? Anybody else? 6. Okay, come on up. Like I said, the person who gets the turn up, I want you to cut off all the black stuff. Okay, you got that? And then if you just cut these up into little squarish kind of chunks. So oh, that's collards, green beans, corn, and parsley. Thank you. And who wants to? You guys over there doing salad? So if somebody wants to lettuce on here, which is 99, and the other person can grate these 2 things into that. Whichever is going To smash the garlic, not
Right.
drop the garlic.
I was gonna step on it.
You don't want it, Julie, you don't want it minced? However, it's onions can be minced. And then the other things like potatoes and carrots and stuff, they should. What my thing, yeah, that's right. I think that's cute, right? Yeah, cubes, that's the right word, cubes. So, another thing that,
One of the reasons up here.
another thing I brought along is,
You know, we've been facing it.
another, so I brought up a bunch of herbs along. I have some, I really like healthy sea salt. You know, it's really very, has many wonderful minerals in it. And, it's not so much more power than like a salt. So we use, you know, we use, healthy sea salt. to be my favorite thing. And we put in some ground pepper and another new product we made this year, which I'm pretty excited about. Someone suggested it, we harvested our celery at the beginning of the year and chopped up the stalks and just froze them individually, froze them in bags. And then the top would be dried in our food dryer and then powdered them. Yeah, I'd say, go for it. Totally powdered. So that's in here and some of our pork spice, yeah. Clove and the other things that are going to the spice marker. That'll be the.
You're growing celery?
What's that?
You're growing celery?
Yeah, we grow celery. So, I need to talk a minute about stock. And I know it's really hard not to talk to each other, but if you could refrain, it would be wonderful. We make stocks from our pig bones and from our turkeys, which is 11.25. That's the and we make chicken stock from the chicken feet and also from the chicken carcasses. Either the old layers, we will slaughter them at when they're end of life, and then we'll boil them down and make stock out of that. We also we used to have cows, we don't anymore, but we make beef stock also. I find actually beef stock is my favorite of all the stocks. It's just got so much in terms of collagen and the marrow from the bones. And a way to make a good stock, good meat stock, you should read, there are two people who are really kind of not experts, but my go-to people are Natasha Campbell McBride, who is drinking off the gas diet, that psychology syndrome. And she's got books, but also Sally Fallon from the Free Price Foundation. She did a lot of studying of the work of Weston Price, who was a dentist who went around the world in the 30s. This is the 1930s. And studied cultures and realized that, a lot of they had incredible bone health, their facial structure was very large, and they had no decay in their teeth. We went back like maybe 15, 20 years later to other places which had been then kind of found by the civilized world, and people were starting to say all of the same kind of diseases of civilization that we all have here. With the narrow jaw and little teeth and all the teeth for orthodontia, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, he was a real protagonist, or not that word, but for new stock. And so, that proponent, thank you. I knew it started with the PRO or something. Oh, it was, if you ever want to read the real thing, it's called physical, it's Weston A. Price, is his name, and it's nutritional and physical degeneration or something, I can't remember, but yeah, was that, so really good book about really what happened because they became connected with, white flour and sugar and, all the processed foods and oils and such that are ubiquitous in our life. We could cut all that up. I think it's a big crowd. And you can probably
Julie, what if I want to go vegan? I make mushroom stock.
Yeah, no,
What about, like, have you tried, like, you mentioned something about you did the squash, you use that as.
Hey, can we,
right?
everybody can outside through the card not to talk, but if you could not talk, I appreciate it.
So if you want to go vegan.
Yeah, if you are a vegan, there are many opportunities to make vegetable and mushroom stock and such.
Yeah.
Too.
Okay.
We are in our family and we embrace animal products and we raise them and we feel it's part of our farm viability. It has to do with animals on the place, but yeah, you can do all these things without. But today's soup will not be vegetarian.
No, that's quite all right. It's okay. It's fine.
Hello. Good to see you. So I'm gonna start putting stuff in. So that's our stock. This is our turkey stock. And like I said, the pork stock, they actually made a pork stock yesterday of pig heads. Some people go, ooh, pig heads. But we put them in a big 5-gallon pot and put them in water, and then we always put all our stock if we add salt and vinegar. And the vinegar helps pull the minerals out of the bone into the water. But the pig's heads, we have to really boil them for an hour. I mean, excuse me, 24 hours to get them down. And then we take off the fat and give that to the chicken and the dogs and everybody else. And we take, everything else that's any kind of, the eyeballs, the tongue, the cheese meat, all that stuff. And we run it through a food process in the stock that we've made and then bring that. But I still have it in the refrigerator. That's this morning, so sorry about that. But I think if you are a meat eater, I like when I make a good stock. I think it's better if I use usually a couple different kinds of meat stock to give it a little bit more. Good. So here's another thing that back to Natasha Campbell McBride. I'm just going to pass it around so you can look at it, but zucchini is one of the most curative things, and courgette, I guess is what they call it in England and other cultures. And what's the name on
The
calabacín. Anyway, zucchini is very, very good for the gut. And if you find it helps people. We're looking at here. That's zucchini. Yeah, zucchini stuff. It's a lot of times people, again, that's one of those things, people get all sorts of zucchini all at once, and it's like, the door stuff and blah, blah, blah. There are a lot of jokes about that, but we've gotten into the habit of just, making lots and lots of zucchini stock, I call it, and freezing it and adding it to these soups. So again, these bone broths are incredibly good for your gut healing if you have gut issues. They're also good for cartilage, building and, really softness in your joints and stuff. But the zucchini is a nice addition. That's going to be really good for the gut. So that's what that is, and that'll go in there too. And you guys have it all done already.
Julie?
Yes.
So I'm just writing those. So the stock which 24 hours cooked, right?
Well, that one
For the
was
head?
the turkey. The head, the pork stock takes up about 24 hours. Usually I can do it less than that. but-
Vinegar, sure, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, good question. We usually have a lot, so I put it in a 5-gallon pot and then put some water in it and then just cook it a little bit. And then run it through a food processor.
This is the zucchini stuff that you're talking about. That's what you're
Yeah.
saying.
And generally speaking, when you're blanching vegetables, you want to make sure that you don't cook them to their final state. So they want to be taken out of the water before they're completely cooked. What we're trying to do with vegetables is stop the enzymatic processes that will not stop if you just cut them up and put them in the refrigerator. That will continue and it'll taste like cardboard. So anyone who lost a lot of this. I think we're good nutrition. Great. Yeah. So, just, it's all in that thing I wrote out too, but, just make sure that you don't overcook it. Thank you. How's that, huh?
And then you said you send it through the food processor, Julie? Is
This-
that how you
this
get
way,
it?
yeah.
Okay.
And so we're gonna put all these, vegetables in here. And. So I want to talk a little bit about roots and how good they are for you. The potatoes, the carrots, the myriad, the beets, all these guys.
really?
What are called resistant or complex, and a lot of resistant complex carbohydrates in them. And, let's put that on there. Handy dandy hot plate. And we'll throw all these herbs in here and we'll put the lid on and you're in charge of making sure this doesn't burn, okay?
What do you want me to go get some in the water?
I'll start. Okay.
Doesn't burn, to make sure.
How to do that, right? What was I talking about? Oh, resistant starches. So, there's a good book, Anne-Marie Moisey, and she actually came to the, what's the place that in people that, and what's the word? The, one of the housing projects. Yeah.
It'll come.
What's that?
It'll come.
In Worcester? No, it's in Springfield. We had her come to a talk. She wrote a book of whose name I forget, of course, but her name is Anne-Marie Moisey, M-O-I-S-E-D. And it's all about gut health and how, how things work in your body and how you have to have a lot of different kind of, as it is in the soil, we need a lot of different kinds of microbes in order to digest things properly. And the biggest job, the most important job is when you get to the bottom of the whole procedure, which is the colon. That's when the more, I would say, more intricate biology lives. And they're the ones that do the final job, and they're the ones that are going to really supercharge your system. Your short chain fatty acids. You know about this?
I'm listening.
Well, I thought maybe you could talk because I'm not like that good at it, but. Yeah, anybody should throw anything they want to in while I'm at this, because I'm kind of a jack of all trades and master of none, but, anyway, those guys are managing the final work in your lower abdomen. What happens so much with our diseases of civilization is that, everything's all used up by the time it gets to the small intestine, because we're eating too much sugar and too much processed foods, and there's nothing for those microbes to get their teeth into. And so, that's when we start having colon cancer and SIBO and, all the problems that people have with digestion. Because we're not eating these complex. So, and it's beautiful that this time of year, perhaps you do, I don't know, I do, I crave a lot of these complex, root crop kind of carbohydrates. And it's a good thing to have in your diet at all times, but particularly I think in women, when we're probably less active and more sluggish and we need more, we need our bowels to move, our whole system to continue with the peristalsis and all the way down to the system. So, they're kind of lowly, potatoes and carrots are kind of like lowly foods, and you think about Poland and some of these northern European countries where all they had was beets and potatoes and cabbage. Not more sexy vegetables, but they're really very good for us. So this is a good time of year with whatever kind of stock, whether it's a mushroom stock or a vegan stock or a animal stock of one sort or another, where you can really mix and match and it's a really beautiful meal for yourself. Certainly roasted vegetables is great, and you can steam them also and do all sorts of things to them. But we were I have a very smart husband, and when we built our house, we designed it. We built it in 1982, and we designed it, really thoughtfully. We read a lot of books, and there was a wonderful book called Mood Celery by Nancy Google, BBL, or Google. We designed our house with that mood cellar in the northwest corner of the basement, such that it's 12 by 12, and so we're able to store all of our potatoes, our carrots, our onions, our rutabagas, our parsnips. That was impressive when you see impressive. It was a little. It's that. They were decorated this year. They were great last year. All those roots we could store in the sand. I should say, the roots that the ones aside from the potatoes we store in a box on the shelf. And onions we store in a box on the shelf and borrow what these other roots, the wheats and carrots and the rutabagas and ferns and all those, we get into salsify, the celeriac is a wonderful, celery is a really healing vegetable, and so is celeriac. So we were able to store all those in our root cellar, and I can just go down and we actually did this yesterday. On a farm day, we went down and got all those roots out of the root cellar, and brought them all up and cleaned them up, and so that we can do this process today. But it's pretty exciting, I think, to be able to work with roots in a way that I didn't really growing up. And we had potatoes growing up and some carrots and stuff, but that was that. And I think oftentimes we aren't taught to branch out and really, embrace some of these, as I call them, less sexy vegetables, really what salsify is, for example, right? We try it every year, but it never seems to germinate for us. But next year, we're going to salsify, to be one of our primo vegetables. So anyway, that's the good news about the roots. And then obviously we need green things too. And the green things are the ones that are going to cleanse our system in the earlier parts of the digestion. And, really, again, start that whole process where we have a nice, strong peristalsis and, good bowel movements on a regular basis and all that kind of stuff. These greens are really important. So that's what that's all about. And then beets have a special role in life, that they're probably the best vegetable for the liver and for the gallbladder. And those two organs work in conjunction. The gallbladder is really a receptacle to hold on to the bile, and on demand it sends it to the liver, and sometimes it sends it into the small intestine, which is also connected to. But you need beets are like the king of making that liver health and gallbladder health. So we try to either eat cooked beets or eat grated beets in our salad. It's all in one. That's a good vegetable to become friends with. Really good vegetable to become friends with. So why don't I take some questions for a minute, and we can move around. Yeah.
This looks like a very basic salad dressing.
Oh, the salad
Oil
dressing,
there,
yeah. It's
Right.
it is. I've been thinking that I need to get into some more salad dressings, but this is 2 parts oil, 1 part vinegar, and then we put some organic ketchup in it. And I use apple cider vinegar. And then we put in a little honey, garlic powder, salt, mustard, paprika, whatever you like. And so, yeah, and always it's important with your salad dressings to not use processed oils. Really be careful about the corn oils, the canola oils, all of these ones that are processed. Even they can sit on the shelf, except for olive oil. Olive oil can sit on the shelf without any problem. But these other ones have been hydrogenated, which is a problem that people have been aware about this for many generations. But when you hydrogenate them, you essentially turn them into plastic, and then that's great for coating your arteries, which is we all don't want. So be very cautious about the oils that you use. When you're supporting, your nice salads. Another question? Yeah.
7 freezers and a 12 by 12.
What's that?
With 7 freezers and a 12 by 12 storage. How many people do you think live in the house?
Oh, you setting me up right now. Last year, I wanted to keep track of how many people we feed, and it was kind of because I'm a, I would say renegade is the right word, I think, that during COVID, when everybody else is closing down and, wearing, masks and not touching each other, no hugging, all that stuff at all, like, no, can't do that, we're just like, all right, bring them on, come on over to our farm, and, I've gotten COVID, but it was like a cold and I got over it. And it's like, I'm certain that I'll continue to get sick from time to time, but my theory about all that is that we want to really, what we want to do is build our health so that we are able to resist these things. A lot of bad things are out there, but a lot of good things are out there too. And I think when you start reading about the digestive process and how you can have a really healthy interior, it has to do with, there are always these little bad guys, but sometimes the little bad guys have roles that are good for us too, if they're in the right numbers. That's why I wish I remembered the name of the book, but Anne Moisey, get it if you really want to understand this whole thing. And I read it too long ago, so I can't really remember all the words about mental bacteria, and they have, it's just being in the right proportions. Thank you. Keep hearing me words.
Google to work here.
Right.
Look up the book for you.
Yeah,
Good
no,
luck
that's-
on
that's
that in
good.
this room.
So anyway, over the last 3 years, because we were one of the few places that people could come and hang out and hug each other and eat together. I mean, my sister, when I was saying, yeah, well, we have 10 people at lunch, you can't do that. You cannot do that. I said, well, Marilyn, I'm doing it. So anyway, we're much in the minority. I understand that, but we held forth that what we need to do is keep ourselves healthy, and then we can deal with things like COVID. However it came to us, whether it was, made in the lab or if it's just a natural whatever, it does kill people. I heard 1 million people have died in this country. It's not like it doesn't exist, but our biggest insurance against this or whatever else is coming down the pipe is to really take good care of ourselves. And, certainly beyond the food, there's also the psychological stuff and emotional stuff and the spiritual stuff, and, having the whole holistic look on life. And, but I do believe that being in community with other people and eating with other people is one of the most healing things that one can do. And that comes deep from my Midwestern background, farming background, where you always put on another plate for whoever happens to show up. And we always had a lot of people around our table. And so this year, 2022, I kept track of how many meals we served, and we served 4,554. So I guess the other exciting news is that since we've been making our farm more nutrient dense for the last, since like maybe 2008, we really got into rock dust and minerals and stuff like that. And then we went no-till in 2014. The quality of our food has just gone up and up and up and up. So it just tastes more tasty all the time. And so it makes it more exciting to raise the food, and then it's more enjoyable when we eat it. So, I didn't realize that I was quite such a restaurant woman. So, but we do have a lot of people volunteering on our farm, and so oftentimes what will happen, what happened today is people will walk in and I hand everybody a knife and a cutting board, and we have at it. And, we try to do 15 or 20 vegetables in every meal. And, we have eggs with vegetables for breakfast, along with a very enriched oatmeal, which would be something like not coconut oats, but just oat groats actually. Put those, throw some quinoa in there and some buckwheat. And some chia and some flax, always good to add chia and flax are both really nutritive for your whole gut system. And a little kelp powder and some cinnamon and some ginger and some coconut, raw coconut. And I put in some dried peaches that we made this year and some raisins and some sunflower seeds and then just cook that. Sometimes I add some coconut oil and then have that oatmeal. And then, scrambled eggs with whatever vegetables are in season for breakfast. And then something like this, a big, well, you might know. Stir. Oh, the stuff is down. I can stir it and give it a glance. All right, I'll stir it.
Julie, stick your hand in.
Keith, meet the one. Meet the one. Yeah, it'll be fine.
Julie?
Kind of dense in there right now. No, it's okay. It's actually, yeah, there's all these things have a lot of their own water in them. I think it'll.
I have a question for, I do a sort of simplified, not simplified version of that breakfast. But I make enough for like 4 or 5 days. So is there any issue in,
Well, I understand that if you have histamine issues, histamine intolerance issues, like people who have asthma have histamine issues, it's like you get a histamine attack and then you're basically your airways goes up. But a lot of people have histamine problems and they can demonstrate themselves as like menstrual issues or excessive sneezing or lots of things that the histamine can do. And I understand that leftovers are not a good thing to eat with your histamine intolerant. However, I can't imagine I'm eating leftovers. So I also make a lot of oatmeal and just and then warm it up. Okay, because it's a lot.
so you don't lose nutrients when it sits in the fridge for a few days?
Well, maybe a little bit. Maybe you gain some stuff too.
Especially leave it out.
Take a quick smell, and if it smells all right, go for it. So, I mean, I've always been really, I guess relaxed would be the right word for it, about, I want it to be the highest quality, I want it to be organic, but after that, I feel like dirt's good for us, dogs licking your face. I mean, there was, before COVID, all this stuff was coming out, if you remember. Mike Collin wrote a book about it, I think. There were articles all over the place about how, people who are healthier when they're living with pets and all this kind of stuff. And obviously you don't want to get hog worms. There are things that we need to understand that we don't want to get. Because we can share worms and hogs. It's something to know about. It's not like we want to be cavalier, but we want to be able to recognize what might be good for us and what, sometimes the excessive cleanliness, I mean, almost always, I would say, this excessive cleanliness is not how we live in nature. And so, we want to build this robust system and which has a lot of diversity of microbial life. So, anyway, do you want to talk about freezing things? What would you like to talk about?
So I have a question. Sorry. Yeah, please.
So I have a question about how you use animal fats in your cooking. So
Yes,
like,
good.
what's your take on using a lot of pork fat, using lard, using butter? Like, I'm all for it, but I'm just,
You're all bored, you said?
I'm all for pork fat. I like cooking with it. But how do you feel about it? Can there be too much? Is it like, do you moderate the amount you cook with or?
Well, good thing that you asked. Lard is my favorite cooking. Fat. I mean, we make lard out of all of our fat back. We just did that last week. We made 75 quarts, I think. Now, I don't know if we have enough because I sold much and I want to have probably 25 quarts a year. And that's my go-to. I was just listening to another podcast today and somebody was saying that, coconut oil is really good for your brain and if you're kind of beat Alzheimer's and things like that, you want to keep using coconut oil. But then it's all this weighing things like, yeah, but coconuts grow a long ways away from me, right?
Right.
And the pigs grow here. And so always try to make those calls, you know, do I do local? Do I do my own thing, or try to have a diversity, you know, now that we are a global culture, is it okay to have oranges and coconut oil and all those other things? But anyway, lard is my go-to.
Okay.
And I also tallow is great too. It's hard to get that, you know, once it's made, it's hard to rot, so I kind of get it, I have quarts of it, I'll just chop it up with the butcher knife and then take out the chunks and use that too. I mean, there's so much raging for every little rage, saturated fats, you know, unsaturated fats, olive oil and coconut oil over, well, coconut oil is actually not unsaturated, it's something that's monosaturated, it's another kind of fat. I think the important thing is that they need to be good fats, and they need to be not hydrogenated, and they need to not be raised in GMO crops. And I mean, you know, I'll make my GMO speech right now and my glyphosate speech right now, that whenever you buy a conventionally raised product that was raised with glyphosate, you are supporting the destruction of the earth. You know, I think it's just like no question about it. So if you're gonna be on your high horse about something, and you're at a NOFA conference, I would say, NOFA's purview, we can be on our high horse about glyphosate. And we can be on about GMOs, and usually the glyphosate is used so that people can have GMO crops and, you know, all that whole problem with those, but you know, we really need to do everything as consumers in our power to stop the use of glyphosate. And the only way as an individual can do that is to eat 3 times a day good food that was raised in, you know, environmentally appropriate way. That's you know, that's my speed. So I use butter. Stir. Almost. Something's boiling.
I do a herd boiling.
Yeah, 4 o'clock. We'll be all right. It's coming.
This question about freezing the, so I know that the best way is to parboil and then freeze, but I actually have other commitments, so I do what I can, and I just put my kale into a bag and freeze it, and it seems to be fine.
Well,
Not much.
all I understand is from, you know, my Bible for freezing was the Rodale, Rodale's book was red. And it was food preservation or, I don't know what it is. It was a food preservation book. And my understanding is that greens like kale are, if they are not steamed a little bit, that they will lose the quality and nutrition in the freezer. That they will, you know, perhaps taste worse also, but that they, there's an enzymatic process that has to be stopped. And the way to do that is to cook them for a very short period of time. So it's not true of a lot of things. There are certain things that have more vitamin C in them or more acid in them, or that's not necessary, like celery, I understand. I mean, again, I go to that Rodale food preservation book is my Bible, but celery, we just chopped it and put it in the bag and put it in the freezer. Parsley, you can do that too. Most of the herbs, that's possible for. All the small fruits like, you know, blueberries, raspberries, all those things, they can just be cut up, which is, I think it has to do maybe with vitamin C content or more sugar, or I don't remember the chemistry of it. But that all those green things really do need that process to happen. So let me just say a little bit about not making a big ordeal about freezing. And I think that it is a big ordeal at our house because we freeze like shitloads of food all the time. And it's like, end of the day, it was like, oh my God, here's this bushel of this and that, you know, that total of that. And there's a lot of stuff to do, but you know, you can do small batches of something. And the way that I have learned to do it most easily is to bring up, you know, an appropriately sized pot of the water to boil, and then put the chopped vegetable. I usually chop it to the format I want even later in there, and put it back on the heat. As all this needs to go as hot as possible, as fast as possible, and bring it back to a boil. And then for greens like kale, like collards might be 2 minutes, but kale maybe 1 minute, Swiss chard maybe a minute and a half, spinach a minute. You know, not much. There's a point where when they're in the water, they change from their natural green color to a different green color, which is kind of brighter. And then if they're in too long, they turn yellow, and then you know you've blown it, right? But you want to catch it at that moment, and it's somewhere between 1 and 3 minutes usually, and it's usually between 1 and 2 minutes. And so when you do that, and then you get a colander, you go run over to the sink, dump it in the colander, and spray cold water on it for just a minute or two, and then put it container and put it in the freezer. It's really not that big a deal. And I think if you, again, if you're a CSA member, if you can look at your, you know, let's say in August, you've got 20 things or 15 things in your bag. Well, here are 10 things that I can preserve, and the other ones I'm going to eat. I have to always eat the lettuce, right? Usually want to eat the radishes, but you know, there's certain things that you feel like you need to eat, and maybe you want to eat them, but there are other things that you can make it a practice to freeze those or dry them. And it can be really fun. I think that's the thing that food preservation historically, at least in my culture, was a lot of women in the kitchen having a hell of a good time together, you know, doing all this stuff together. And guys can come too, you know. One of the things that Jack and I often do at night, if I haven't been able to get it done during the day, is we'll like get a movie and just sit there at the kitchen table and chop up stuff, and you know, the movie sitting on the table, and I can go back and forth from the stove to the sink and can watch the movie while we're freezing stuff or whatever. I think I talk about in here about peas, for example. So many people don't want to deal with peas, but oh my God, so much work, all the shelling, oh, I can't do it, you know. So, you know, make it a community event. Get your family involved, get your friends involved, and give them some of the stuff. But we have 4 kids, and I used to try desperately every day to get more work out of them. And I remember one of the things that we would do is we'd have pea shelling contests. And so everybody get set up with 20 pods, and then you count, and you go, and everybody go, and whoever got done first won that particular round. But so we got, you know, we had 100 peas got shelled in that very short period of time. But I mean, it's also, well, I this most recently, with the peas, we had a 40th anniversary of moving to our farm on July 3rd. The peas in berry always come in heaviest on July 4th weekend. So we had this party on the 3rd, and a bunch of people stayed overnight. They camped out and stuff, and they started filtering in, and I had 15 gallons of peas to shell. And I said, okay, well, we're going to shell the peas before we have breakfast. And by the time we got done, I had 10 people around the table, and we got them all shelled, right? But it was fun. You know, people like so much. It's just like, I feel I'm really doing something. I mean, if you have, how many people here have never preserved food? Everybody has. How many people are preserved? How many people would like to preserve more food than they do already? Is that why you're here? Yeah. So I think, you know, making it fun, and it can be drudge work. It really can be drudge work. But if we think about when, you know, what's the time of day when I'm most excited about these things? When can I have people over? You know, how can you can have people over for dinner, right? And, you know, have them, okay, we're gonna shell soybeans tonight. Yeah. Go ahead.
I just have to say, I've grown less this year than I ever have before. I think I cleaned out one freezer this week and just threw everything that was there in the pot, and there was a big pot of vegetable soup and some potatoes. And I separated because it's too much for one meal, and then I refreeze it.
Yeah.
And so far, I have not gotten a ticket for refreezing frozen vegetables that I process. Nobody comes in and says they taste like cardboard. So that's one of my cheats to make it a little bit easier. But also, I have to confess to freezing raw vegetables. One year we were so inundated with zucchini and squash, and my husband was like throwing them out. So we just threw some in the freezer.
Yeah.
And they were whole.
Yeah.
They weren't blanched. They were nothing.
And then what did you do with them later?
And we chopped them in the middle of the winter, and they were
Throw them in stew.
soup.
Yeah.
So I
That
just,
may well be the case with squash. That may well be the case with squash.
Yeah,
I think it's the green things. I mean, the leafy things. And the green beans and peas and those kinds of things that need to be.
kale, I put it in collards, I put it in the crock pot
Mhm.
and just get it so it. And then.
Yeah, I put my
Yeah.
kale in smoothies and I can't taste the difference. It looks okay.
Yeah,
I
I think
actually come to
someone
taste
would,
test.
someone would wanna look that up. I'm sure it's available online. We can find out, is this true or not, but. It's been my experience that if I can get them, if I can blanch stuff to the, exactly the right moment and then serve it later, people say, wow, this tastes fresh, that's when
People
you
don't say
really,
about mine.
that's when you've really made it, when you serve frozen vegetables later. And, again, I think, and again, when you're rehydrating them, when you're gonna serve them, again, you want to just put the water in and get them in there quickly. As soon as they goes to a boil, you're done. When you're ready to serve. And I also always say, butter and salt. Yeah.
In your root cellar. Can you walk me through the setting up for beginners?
Yes.
And
How to
then
set up a
that's-
root cellar?
Right, that's number one. The second question is, which roots last the longest, and which roots last the shortest?
Well, find the northwest corner of your house, usually the coldest corner. Do you have a basement?
Yes.
And is it finished or unfinished, or what is it exactly?
Was your flat screen TV finished or?
Yeah, well, I don't know, I don't have a flat screen TV.
Right.
but yeah,
No, but I'm just saying, I mean, the finish could be different definition. Can I walk down there? Is it wet? No, it's, if I wanted to build something down there,
What's
I
the
can.
floor?
Cement, yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's not
It's not
perfect
technically,
cement, but
And they heated or not?
well,
Is it what?
and you said,
And they heated or not heated?
it's not heated.
Not
The
heated.
furnaces are down there, so it stays the same temperature.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
yeah, so you probably all set up, starting to be set up for a break. And you and Anna should come out sometime for dinner and Jack can take you on a root cellar tour, and we can actually go around and do.
You didn't do this in the game? You didn't take a film? Okay.
But anyway, northwest corner, walled off, and have a, we made 6-inch walls. And we had a 6-inch door that we made, and then my mother was alive at the time and she was an artist and she painted on the door all the things going on, so a really nice picture on the inside, right there.
So, or when you say 6 inches, so
6
from
inch
the
wide,
wall?
6-inch wide wall.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, so you want a bigger wall. And if you have is there, like, do you have a window at the top of it?
Yes, yes.
So what we do is we have a intake, pipe and outflow pipe, so that we can get fresh air in. Because you want to get fresh air in, and then you want to exhaust it. And then we have a fan in there so that it's in the fall, we turn on the fan so it's cooling down. It doesn't ever get above 50, really cellar, but we want to cool it down to 35 or so. So you turn the fan on, starting in, late October, and leave it on, like this winter, it hasn't been very cold, so I'll just leave it on, but some winters when it gets below 0, I have to open these other doors, so it's freezing there. So I have to kind of monitor it. But we have a hallway downstairs, we have a little, high low thermometer, so we can see what the temperature is. And then, our floor is totally sand. We never finished that part of the basement, so it's nice to keep that reasonably moist. I suppose once it's in it, it seems like we'll stay moist. We don't have to water it or not, but we put our roots, like I said, aside from the potatoes, we put all the other roots in sand, in a bushel basket, fill it full of sand and water, not a rain, so it stays wet. So it's those crops think that they're maybe they can just run down and all that too. We know they're not. Anyway, and then yeah. Oh, it's boiling! Yay! Woohoo! You guys getting hungry?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I'm sorry, I missed this. All right, so I need to put 3.5, we're gonna give this maybe 10 more minutes, and then I'll put the. stuff in. So, you know, most of our stuff, again, this has to do with the nutrient density of your crops. They will last longer if they're healthier. But we certainly had things last until July. From October, November. And then sometimes if we haven't taken the potatoes out, you'll walk down there and you just like to see that. So, you know, the sprouts will go like 4 or 5 feet long. But, and they kind of, yes. Oh, yeah, exactly. I mean, we get them out and right when they're starting to. Potatoes are gonna do their thing there this time. And so important is even, you know, before you see the eye or when you see the eye. Onions won't last kind of long.
Well, that's another question. Can we leave garlic hanging or do you need to like get it off? Get it off or?
You can leave it hanging. Yeah, but you don't want it in the sink. Unless it's in the basket.
No, but if it's hanging.
Yeah,
if it's
that's
hanging,
fine.
it's-
That's fine, yeah. And you know, I've certainly had garlic and onions hanging in the house. That is, it's nice. They seem to do really well in this one. Hold on a second, are you done?
No, it's insurance.
No, that's not sure.
That's the root vegetables.
Oh. I don't know, did anybody notice any difference in the texture of any of these when you were cutting them up? They're all pretty solid, weren't they? No, I don't think that any of them are better or worse than the others. Yeah, it had more to do with their nutrition going in, how strong of a properly so.
Julie, what about humidity? So that looks like a big factor. Both are, right?
Yeah, well, you want it to be very humid. You want it to be very humid, sir. Yeah,
But that's what I found out with my garlic. I always get like, well, like 300 heads. And I store it in different parts of my cellar.
yeah,
And the part that was always around 50 degrees is humid because I don't have a, you know, it's like a closed off room.
yeah.
They seem to last longer. The other one starts sprouting earlier.
If they're warmer.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I think garlic is like more like 40 or 50. And so that's a nice, and squash also doesn't like it quite so cold as these other ones like it. But if you get Nancy Boole's book, it's a really good book. And it's Rodale published it years ago. I assume it's still in print. But it's Roots Healthy, it's the name of the book. And she's got everything you need to know is in there and how to retrofit your house. You know, what kinds of outdoor root cellars you can make through hill, and how, if you want to build a new one, how to build a new one. It's a very, very good book.
Do you actually have sand on the bottom of your cellar? Like just
In that room.
in that room? Yeah. How much feel is that between moving and not? I want to do it.
About to be you and the husband?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I never fought with Jack about anything.
I know. Yeah.
And I was gonna ask you, I know you like sand, define sand, so like, is it like beach sand or is it like?
That's what I got from the local sand pit.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, nothing fancy. I mean, if you live near the beach, I for better work around.
Well, and to answer your question as far as root cellars, you can do, I do root boxes, I don't have a root cellar, but I have a part of my basement, I just walled off that I do root box. Or root crates with sand, that's why that's what you do, I'm saying.
You know, just keep them hydrated.
Yeah.
And grow
The
really well.
fan actually makes a big difference.
Yeah, well, the fan will keep you also keep the, you know, outgassing, all that. The outgassing is happening, you're always bringing in pressure to around with the help. So that's happening.
what about like the butternut squash?
Well, we have one left because we've eaten all the rest of them. But this year, we just left them downstairs in the basement, not in that area. So it was 50 to 60, maybe 40, 60.
You dip them in like bleach water solution and vinegar and
I don't believe in bleach. Again, I think, you know, I haven't always been the best squash grower. And we would oftentimes have a lot of rot. You have to just, what happens with, what I do with winter squash when it starts to rot is I cut out the bad spots, chop it up. Cook it, run through the food processor and then have squash puree.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was been really happy this year. We're getting our act together on our squash growing so that it actually was, there was no, we grew, I think we had 785 squashes this year. We've been counting them all. We only threw out about 3.
Yeah, but it was a dry year, so that might have something to do with it.
Hard to know.
Did you- Do you do other varieties of winter squash or just butternut?
Oh, we do butternut and carnival. Is that the pretty one? And delicate. Those are small enough, they're CSA-able, people like them, and they're high producers. Butternut's a high producer. So is a carnival. And so is a delicate.
I grow a bunch of squash, and I cellar, and I just do the sodium permanent squash, and I've had them go with an extra. I've had them for over a year, even when you're with the film,
Oh, wow.
if you do it right.
That's
Okay,
impressive.
I have a cellar, I don't have a root cellar, but I have a cellar. But I think that just that sodium carbonate, that like baking soda, that wash and
Sodium bicarbonate.
bicarbonate, I knew I was wrong. Sorry, I'm a little off. Yeah,
That's right. It
so
took me a
bicarbonate,
minute.
and
Sodium bicarbonate's good for you too.
that's what I was thinking,
Quarter
it's just good for me, good for washing. Yeah.
Quarter teaspoon in water every day, I hear is really good for your alkaline balance.
Last
knew
year
it felt
sprayed
wrong.
Vinegar. And I had my squash glasses to do.
Yeah,
We could make a good squash, just be depending on it.
I would say whatever works is, go for it.
Work, right?
And we put ours on a decorative shelf because we think they're pretty and I've had them last for a year and a half.
Oh, that's
No,
nice.
no treatment.
As long as they're cured, sorry, I didn't cure it.
Yeah, I mean, you want to cure them, you want to leave them out in the sun, for a bit, after you harvest them. And if you're really good, you can harvest them on an appropriate biodynamic day, so that it's a harvest day as opposed to a non-harvest day. And then you leave them out in the sun to cure. So, yes.
How do you store your cured garlic crop?
Well, I used to always store it, we used to make garlic braids, and I stored them in braids, and then I started putting them in the root cellar, and as it turned out, it worked really well in the root cellar, so I was surprised by that, because I thought that they had to be warmer than that. But these ones that we were working with today, were pretty hard, we're pretty good shape. Yeah.
Yeah, we've had issues like with, we harvest our garlic for the farm, we'll just cure it and then it'll just mold. It molds sooner than I like. Like it goes bad, like by now, a lot of it started to go bad. So I'm trying to come up with a new way to do it. We just keep it at room temperature and that's so.
You have a fan running?
We do have a fan running, yeah.
So
Yeah.
when we harvest ours, we put it up on our second floor of our barn, and it's a big floor space. And we have a fan on this end and a fan on that end, and we leave the fan on for a good month.
Okay.
To make sure that it's completely dry.
And then you put it in the root cellar without any greens on it, right? It just,
Yeah, I actually don't store that much because, we gave out almost all of it to the CSA. and
Okay.
a little bit left, but, again, you have to make sure that your culture, that your growing culture is strong too, because if it isn't, if it goes into the storage with some mold, you can't see it necessarily, but it's working. We're in that situation, and it's gonna, go soft and. So, yeah, I don't know.
You dehydrate.
was that,
I always dehydrate, like,
that's good.
it's kind of like December,
Yeah,
I-
that's what
I-
we do too.
have a peeling party with,
Yeah.
and I chop them up.
Always have a
Yeah.
party. Yeah,
Dehydrate.
that's really easy to do that, actually. We will, take off the skins and foam in a food processor. And make a nice paste. And then we have on our Excalibur, food dryer, we have these. Silicone sheets, I think they are, they just pour it out on there and spread it around and we put it in the dryer for a day. And, you can go, I've gotten sick in the snow, it's just so overpowering. But then it's all hard, and then you can crunch it up and put it back in the processor again, and then you have garlic powder. It's also been sale item. We sell it for $12 for 2 ounces. Wow. Wow. Yeah. Good stuff.
Do you ever have any trouble like? with mice?
Well, as a matter of fact, I had, I put some of our sweet potatoes in the root cellar. And, mice particularly like the sweet potatoes, so, they ate a large portion of them. Oh, yeah, but we also sometimes are, when I think about it, we get cats and bring them in and you know, leave them sort of open or put them in there, leave them open. So parsley, this is flat leaf parsley, my most favorite vegetables of all time. I mean, it's so good for us and good for our blood. You see how beautiful and green it goes is, but we just chop that up and throw it in the bag. That's how we do that one. And then corn, I chop it off of the cob first and then boil it. Actually, this one boils for 6 minutes. That's a long one. And then beans are in there. They're about 2 minutes. And collards are in that minute to minute and a half range. So we're gonna slow down the soup again here by putting all these vegetables in here. Let's see if I. See if I- So other forms of food preservation or issues or concerns that people want to talk about.
Julie, there's a question that came in. I may have missed it. How do you store your lard?
So we get fat back and leaf lard from our pigs. And if we can, we throw it in the freezer if we have no freezer space, but then get it out in, in increments and thaw it out just enough to cut it. We don't want it to be totally thawed. It's easier if you cut it with when it's kind of partially frozen. And the fat back is just, it's got a layer of skin on top and then this much fat underneath. And you have to kind of slice that skin off and then chop up into squares. So we use these knives to use this knife to stripper. We have strippers and we have, there's nothing fun about all this stuff. We cut the strips about this thick. And then we'll use a knife like this to extract the fat from the skin. And then the friend who likes the skins, so she takes a bunch of those, but I also give a bunch to the dogs and the chickens and cats and go out the door and whoever gets there first gets to eat them. And then we cook it down on a, you don't want to add any water. You just put it in a pot. Again, use a 5-gallon pot and cook it slowly on the stove. And the cracklings will kind of rise to the top and the lard goes to the bottom. So it's one of the most beautiful, I think it's one of the most beautiful processes. I think there's something about the smell of the lard in the house and then it's like this golden brown, wonderful color. So at the end, then we skim off the cracklings and you can eat those. Southerners eat them all the time. Or you can give those to your chickens or whatever you have to eat them. And then we pour off the lard into quarts once it's cool and then freeze it in quarts. These kind of quarts right here. So, that answer that question, you think?
I think so.
Yes.
Do you process your own pigs? I'm sorry. Okay, yeah.
No, we get them done every so
Okay.
often.
Could you speak to sort of your thought process as why you choose a certain method of preservation over another method? Or like, for instance, with the garlic, you dry it and then once it starts to maybe go, you have another sequence that you use. With
Exactly.
Hydrator.
Yeah.
It would just be interesting to know.
Well, do you have particular crops in mind?
Not really, I know that's not.
No, it's okay, but
But
I
I mean, like freezing requires you have to have a freezer and you have to run the freezer all the time. So
Right.
it's, tremendous amount of energy suck for instance.
but I don't like canned beans.
Okay, well,
No.
I mean,
And I think canning is a process that has more of a negative impact on the nutrition. You have to boil them after you get them in the can, and I think it kills more of the enzymes, kills more of the vitamins and such. So
pickling.
yeah, pickling is another way that you can do things, either lacto fermentation with cucumbers, and you can lacto ferment beans. You can lacto ferment beans if you want. You have to find a place to store those too. So cabbage, we freeze it and we also lacto ferment it. So the earlier cabbages will freeze, and then the ones that come in October, November, the lack of permits, because our food cellar is not cold enough in September. If we lack a permit and then put the sauerkraut in the food cellar, it'll just turn mush. So, you know, that with the cabbage, it's that kind of timing issue. And then we can have nice, really nice sauerkraut. If it goes in late, then we can have it up until March or something. Let's see, greens, I mean, I know, again, a lot of Southerners, I think, were in the habit of canning a lot of those things, but you have to remember, a lot of people didn't have refrigeration until, I mean, I don't know when it started coming in, 50s, 60s, 40s. And some people without, you know, when you don't have refrigeration or access to a freezer, then drying. You know, a lot of people dry like onions, they'll dry squashes, and, you know, reconstitute them in soup. A lot of folks will just dry almost anything. I like to freeze my parsley rather than dry it because I think it's got more nutritional value. Basil, I tend to grind it up with some olive oil and put it in a pastry tray and freeze it that way and pull it out and use it that way. Tomatoes, I mean, you could talk about tomatoes from house and a lot of people will freeze and cut them up in chunks and store them in the freezer. We don't have enough freezer space to do that, so we can the tomatoes. We just can them just the tomatoes with salt and then make tomato sauce, and people like to boil them forever. Other people, you know, whatever. So everybody's got their own tastes.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that, yeah, you gotta have equipment for some of these things, you gotta have space and storage and time is really, you can just throw something in the freezer as opposed to, yeah, going through the canning process.
Yeah.
And it seems like you have kind of space and equipment to really get to pick and choose how you want to prepare something.
Yeah, well, no, we've been lucky that we had the space to, you know, and we had a whole bunch of old freezers and they started to go all pretty much at once. And this guy came out with our second freezer, which I remember your place, and I put that other freezer right in there. And, you know, we had a it was so funny. Somebody we got from Home Depot. It was like, you know, but yeah, I mean, I think in terms of investments, you know, a freezer is a very good investment, and I always encourage people to get a chest freezer also because the cold holds better than on a upright. Just not as efficient.
So the only energy for mini freezer is only an upright that's energy.
That's
There's only one Energy Star mini freezer, and then the upright.
Yeah. I don't know about that. I just know that, you know, that when you open the door, it all rushes out, and when you open the chest freezer, it's all the cold stays down.
Or the up-
When you open it upright, that's like a refrigerator style.
Oh, no, it's the open.
Yeah, that's a chest.
So I gotta ask Julie, what do you do for powers now?
Well, in 2008,
You have a lot of freezers, so think about you and the power going out.
in 2008, we lost power for 10 days, and we bought a generator and we shared it with our son who was trying to keep his stuff going, and we haven't really had serious power outages since then. But however, Jack this year invested in a generator, a big one. It's outside, but it's like it goes on automatically. Yeah. And then it was great because we lost power then like 2 weeks later. It's very exciting. It worked. But those are expensive. You know.
Well,
So,
I don't know, how many freezers?
I think just 7 or 8.
Yeah, gonna need a good generator to run freezers.
Yeah.
Put a little, need to get well water.
There's that too. Well, water is also another issue. Soup is getting ready. Wait. I think we should, we can keep talking, but why don't we, can you guys help me get those plates and sports? So don't take the forks home, don't take the knives home. These are very small. Okay, take your food in your plate and you don't if you want. So let me set up over there and it's, the soup might be ready in time. I just think, you know, to the extent that you can make food preparation a community event, whatever your community is. Joyous and, It's great way to bring up grandchildren and children. Great way to help, people who don't usually get to work with knives, it's pretty very exciting for people to get these knives and.
We did kind of, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good enough.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I'd rather. Like, oh, no. Yeah.
You go into the basement. And it's all kinds
Yeah, and like.
Except teach to its own. Those friends will be that's one of the people that can come on the list to get,
Oh, yeah. That's my someone. All wrong spots. Yeah. Yeah. So when I
yeah.
Yeah, I don't fear to repeat something. I didn't feel oh, how did they gave questionable. Like they gave questions. I thought chunky, I think. Oh, I can't tell you how. Kids are kids.
Oh.
Sit down with your friend, I work trying to keep. So, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
See, I really was pretty sure.
Anybody else want to eat? Have some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Julie, there's another question that came in. It's, you mentioned another book earlier related to overall preserving, not the root cellaring.
I talked about Natasha. Yeah.
Which was it?
I talked about Natasha. Right. Probably I was talking about. Yeah,
Nourishing traditions, maybe?
that's, Sally Fallon.
Yeah, it could have been nourishing traditions with Sally Fallon. Also, Julie, is there a chance we could get a digital copy of the handout to share with our online?
About that, this is like my a chapter out of my book. Our Jackson content.
Yeah.
Yeah. I suppose it's not gonna, it's not gonna help wild, right? But
And if they said, if you make a PDF, then I
pretty lot of people are figuring that I can tell my time. Like,
oh, free for the publisher might be a little, like, yeah, give me. Yeah.
If you're just gonna give one to you,
Yeah.
yeah, they know the email.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
I know they have like, there is a, like,
So I had to turn down. Thirty. Oh, Western being nice. Western.
yeah.
No, no.
I thought of an idea, so.
Yeah.
So there's always the. Just. Yeah.
I was gonna get a shot of you enjoying your. Yeah.
Right. Another problem though, I'm still looking for it really easily, so we have to figure out how to.
Yeah, I gotta get out of my corner.
Oh,
here.
okay. I would like a makeshift, you know, French soil health sign.
After the keynote.
Okay, so I still have to take my picture. Right. I'm gonna want my picture for you, so. I know. But I would. You know, like. To be do one, but I was like, I also need to make sure. How things are
It's funny.
Yeah. Which I was gonna say, like, yeah, like, anyway, but that's where everything's putting the sand. And that's why how big can I make it? Yeah, they're getting on the platform, like I have to get better, you know. I get it. Yeah. Well, yeah. That's where gravity.
No, you don't. Child, tell me it's over, you know.
Right, right. Yeah. That's what I figured, like, well, we can make in-laws too, which I think I can actually make a nice one. I think I can pursue in-laws during the. Kitty farm. Right, right. Right. I mean, that's where, and I think like my whole. That I have already good at. Yeah. How do you? Yeah. Yeah. They're really. I miss this. Yeah. I don't know. We're on a hill. Yeah. Yeah. It's barely. It's a little. Yeah. Well, I was seeing this morning, I get here yesterday, I went into my first ice storm in a couple of days. So my husband, like, they're for help to us. This morning on the like, she's down in South Jersey, South Jersey right now. Yeah. You're like, like a car, kind of garage, you're parking in the house. Yeah, yeah. How old is she? She's been with you all day. Oh, okay. Are you driving back? Oh, good, good. Are you gonna go stay tonight? Yeah. Yeah. They go tomorrow morning, right? Yeah, the dog was so excited. You know, here. One more interaction, and then you get here and I can hear you. No, I. But I'm right on. How is it?
Well, then, yeah.
Hi, folks. Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you all from your great conversation. Just want to say thank you to Julie so much for all the information.